The Trump administration is stepping up its push to break up the Department of Education, transferring much of the agency's workload, including 6 offices, to other federal agencies. The move is drawing criticism from education advocates and even some Republicans. Here with me now from the White House is the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So I know that you've said that you're doing some testing on the effort to ultimately eliminate the department that you lead. What does that actually mean, testing, in practical terms?
Well, Dana, thanks for having me today, and it's really great to speak with you. These are kind of first steps as we are looking to move some of the programs out of the Department of Education. What we're doing is proof of concept. In other words, we are taking some of the programs that are currently being handled at the Department of Education and moving them to different agencies. Sometimes perhaps that program was at the particular agency before there was a Department of Education, and other times this will be new, a new effort to see how it will work. And the goal is that we have thought through this very carefully. We've carefully selected the people who are being on a temporary basis transferred over to these different agencies. And I said what we want to do is to show Congress that this implementation works. It's a proof of concept, and to show and say, okay, this is how a permanent transfer to this department is going to work. We need their vote to do that, and we're not looking at this lightly. And I've kept Chairman Cassidy from the Senate and Chairman Walberg from the House informed of this. I've spoken to many congressional members already to say, this is what we're doing. We know we need to show you that it will work to do this. So we had signed it's called an interagency agreement. We did that a few weeks ago, the first move to labor. We signed 6 that we announced yesterday. Now, these 6 that we announced yesterday aren't ready to implement right away. This is just the beginning stage as you're setting up these interagency agreements. So we will see 2 more moving to the Department of Labor, to HHS, 1 to state and 1 to the Interior. And I think these make very practical, common sense moves. And once we've had the proof of concept, then we'll ask Congress to approve the permanent move.
I'm sure you've heard one of the biggest criticisms and concerns is that if you are successful in what you call this proof of concept and ultimately dismantle the Department of Education, what is going to happen is an even more complex bureaucracy that will make it harder for families to find the resources when they need help. What do you say to that?
They will just go directly to the agency that is handling the particular issue that they are looking to get answers on. And I don't think it will be any more complex than trying to get those answers from the Department of Education. I think they'll be better served because they will know exactly where the answers lie, which agency to go to. So I don't have any worry about that at all.
Your fellow Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, is not happy about this. He released a statement which said, in part, quote, "The United States Congress created the U.S. Department of Education for very good reason, and for millions of families, particularly those raising children with disabilities or living in low-income communities, the department's core offices are not discretionary functions. They are foundational. They safeguard civil rights, expand opportunity, and ensure that every child in every community has the chance to learn, grow, and succeed on equal footing." And he went on to say, altering them without transparency or congressional oversight would pose real risks to the very students they were created to protect. I will not allow it, and I urge all of my colleagues to stand with me. What's your response to your colleague in the House?
Well, certainly I think what I started out by telling you, we know we need congressional approval. That's why we're doing these proof of concepts. And Dana, please do understand that before there was a Department of Education, Title I funding for those students in lower economic areas, IDEA funding, which is for our students with special needs, that money was appropriated by Congress. It flowed through to those states, and those programs existed and were handled very well. The Department of Education only acts as a pass-through for that money that is appropriated from Congress. And so I understand that Congress wants to have transparency. That's why we're doing these proof of concepts, so that we can go back to them and say, this is what we've done, this is how it's worked. This is how we believe that it will actually even be more efficient to operate this way and with less bureaucracy, less regulation. Dana, do you know that in the state of Tennessee, I got a statistic one day that told me that of a grant that went into one of the public schools, that teachers spent 47 cents of every dollar just in regulatory compliance. And as we've seen our test scores drop continuously since the Department of Education was set up, and we spent $3 trillion in the process, only to see test scores continue to fall, it's time to do something different. It's not working, so let's give it a shot.
So I just want to be clear, you're talking about regulatory compliance, but you're also saying that the programs inside the Department of Education ultimately would move back as they were before Jimmy Carter created the department to other agencies. So how will that do anything about the red tape that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, let's make sure. I just want to be clear. I understood you to say that would move back to the departments, not necessarily to the same departments. In fact, some of those programs might not have been created.
Move out of the Department of Education.
Yes, move out of the Department of Education to other agencies, because there won't be the regulatory compliance that first has to go through the Department of Education and then perhaps through another agency that's happening already in government. And basically what we're not seeing is money getting to the students. You know, President Trump really does not believe that any child should be kept a prisoner in a failing school. And that's why we saw through the big, beautiful bill, the first national program for school choice. This president understands that the best education is that's closest to the child and not wrapped up in the bureaucracy of Washington.
Yeah, and as you have said many times, and it is true, the Department of Education has a lot of functions, but most of the function of sort of quote unquote governing education is done at the local level, and that has been true for a long time. I do, before I let you go, want to ask you about Harvard and the tug of war, the fight that the administration has been having with that university. Federal funding that the Trump administration had blocked is now flowing again after a judge ruled in Harvard's favor. But there are other ways the administration is putting pressure on the university. The president said a few weeks ago that the administration is close to finalizing a $500 million deal with Harvard on trade school funding. And there are other investigations, though, that are still going on, not necessarily through your department, but through others. So where do things stand? How active are conversations between the Trump administration and Harvard right now?
They are active, and we're working with the Justice Department and ongoing conversations with Harvard, and I hope to have that wrapped up pretty soon.
Like this week soon, or can you quantify that?
No, I'm certainly not going to put a deadline on it, because when you have to go through courts and settle suits and do all of that, it just takes time.
And you're talking about across the board, holistically, what the administration, the pressure points on various fronts, that will all be over as part of whatever negotiations you're involved in?
Correct. We're looking to, just as we did in the Columbia deal, we want to make sure that Title VI is clearly enforced. Section 117 of foreign reporting, all of those kinds of things, and Title IX. We just want to make sure everything is all buttoned up in this deal, and I'm looking forward to having a good outcome with Harvard.
Education Secretary Linda McMahon, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dana.